It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the planet, we are Red Eye Radio. Good morning. Thanks for being here. Made it to Friday, didn't we? He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Woohoo! You hear they got a new lung cancer pill showing earth-shattering results in a 5-year study. It's sold under the name of Tagrisso. I can't pronounce the scientific name, but it's available to patients with stage 1B to 3A lung cancer who have certain genetic mutation and have had surgery to remove cancerous tumors. According to those patients, Tagrisso was shown to reduce the 5-year risk of recurrent cancer by up to 73% and the risk by up to 51%. In the world of oncology, that is earth-shattering, said one oncologist on that. In the past, we've been happy with 5 or 10%, and now we're talking about in excess of 50% improvement in survival. So it's good news.
Osimertinib. That's what it is.
That's close to how I was going to pronounce it.
Yeah.
But we actually lead an hour with good news.
Oh, that is great news. Some really outstanding news.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is. We had the debate the other day. Oh, by the way, did you see I asked, will it draw more than the World Series? Remember I asked that question?
Oh,
because the World
debate?
Series was record low?
Yeah.
It did not.
Oh.
It drew, I think, only 7.5 million people, down from 13 million, I think, the first debate had.
Okay.
So
well, because, and I think, everyone is waiting for Donald Trump to be on that stage. I mean, that's, let's just say, all right, you wanted to learn something about the other candidates, which is the case for a lot of people, or you just want to see, what points they're going to make. After the first couple of debates, you kind of know where they stand. You know what they're going to say. You've seen it before, likely. If you're interested enough in the debate, it most likely means that you're already involved enough to know, number one, how the debates work, how it's going to go, what it means when they all go after one opponent, those types of things. And then also, again, what the candidates stand for. If you're actively involved, you know that. And the rest is, I don't know, some kind of morbid sense of entertainment.
Well, when I did watch the debate yesterday, the one thing that I picked up on, because when we got on the air, I saw a lot of clips of it, but I just didn't have the time because of my schedule when I wake up.
Right. I didn't have the will, so yeah, right.
and so I saw the back and forth on Social Security.
Yeah.
And DeSantis basically, and I think he's being sensitive to the Trump criticism. Wall Street Journal pointed it out that the Trump campaign, when remember DeSantis supported Paul Ryan's entitlement reforms while in Congress. And the campaign said at the time, now this is rhetoric on steroids from the Trump campaign. You ready for this?
All right.
DeSantis is colluding with his globalist handlers to go full never Trump in order to gaslight the people into thinking that Medicare and Social Security should be ripped away from hardworking Americans. So they were all asked yesterday about Social Security. Nikki Haley and Chris Christie argued for gradually raising the retirement age for younger Americans. DeSantis dismissed the idea, saying, when life expectancy is declining, I don't see how you could raise it in the other direction. Wall Street Journal makes the point, yeah, but it just dropped for a couple of years because of COVID. It'll go right back up again.
Right.
And so you're still going to have that. You're still going to have that problem. But and basically, the article is on DeSantis and Trump's Social Security punt. That both of them are saying, "Oh no, it's all going to be fine. We really can't do anything." That's the point the article's trying to make on it.
Yeah.
And they do point out that, and this is the one concern that I've always had about Trump. I never know what direction he's going to go in. Now, luckily, and I voted for him twice, and when he became president, a lot of the things he said he was going to do, I didn't like. He ended up reversing them when he got into office. One of the things, and every time I say this, I get people furious at me, but it's the truth. I have no reason to lie on it. When he talked about what he was going to do with USMCA, the new free trade agreement. And we had to, when it was done, we had to tell people that it's really not much different at all. Very little different than NAFTA. But his loyal supporters bought it. I got rid of NAFTA, and I renamed it. But they really didn't change it much at all. And the things they did change, in fact, the thing that he promoted the most made making auto parts in the United States, Canada, and Mexico more expensive. And as we stated on the air, that was the thing he promoted the most, is that, he made it so, it was more expensive for Mexico and Canada to produce auto parts, which would make it more expensive across the board for an American citizen, which meant who's buying a vehicle, which meant more likely that would be shipped overseas. But he promoted that as a great accomplishment, and we disagreed with him. But we complimented him on the fact that he didn't do the massive protectionist things that he was talking about was going to be in USMCA. And so I view that as good. So a lot of the things he flipped back and forth on. Remember, when we talk about it, and we had talked about the constitutional proposition in Texas, which still amazed us because it was the fact that the constitutional amendment is the legislature cannot propose a net worth or wealth tax unless the people get a vote on it. And you would just think that that is something that would pass, even in the state of Texas, 52-48, because the wealth tax has been promoted as the great solution to balancing the budget because we tax the rich on their wealth. And, of course, it won't do that. It would make them, if you do it in a state, it will make them leave the state, which is why California wants to have a lifelong wealth tax, where if you leave the state, they'll still tax you years after you've left the state.
Yeah, I don't know. I had confidence that it would go the way that it went. In urban areas, in the blue areas of Texas, and that's basically what you saw, the hardcore Democrats pushing back on it. But I think that there has been, in states like Texas and pro-growth states, there has been this understanding that when you hear these words of going after the wealthy and going after the big corporations, what it really means is a power grab, and the greater benefit is for the government and not the people. And
we know that. And by the way, I'm happy with it. I was just pleasantly surprised because it was 65-35. Or
maybe 68.
Something like that. Yeah, I mean, it was such a landslide number. And I'm just saying, well, the reason I'm impressed is because the Democrats have pounded the wealth tax as a solution, and it targets only the rich, only the rich, only the rich. So to get that huge, of course, you're going to get the loyal, Democrats. But remember how close Skater Boy came to beating Ted Cruz for the Senate just a couple of years ago. So to have on the actual issue,
well, I think a couple of things there. I think keep in mind that was right after that, or not long after. That was 2 years after 2016, when Ted Cruz did the whole vote your conscience thing and got put off the stage at the Republican National Convention. I think a lot of that also had to do with Ted Cruz, I know it did, but when it came down to it, Ted Cruz is much more conservative than Skater Boy. Yeah. And that didn't make it. But I think he was still scarred by 2016.
But personnel got involved in that, and so you're wondering to yourself, okay, if the the state of Texas will do it that close. I never saw 65-35 on the wealth tax coming. I'm pleasantly surprised that it was that way.
Yeah, I kind of expected it to fall along the lines that it did.
Yeah,
I was.
Yeah. That's still surprised me, but it's good. It's good that happened. But for example, on wealth tax, the person who first brought the wealth tax really mainstreamed it was Trump.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time that he was promoting the wealth tax, what else was Trump promoting back 20 years ago? He was promoting completely reforming Social Security and Medicare. Completely. He wanted 20 years ago to raise the retirement age to 70. And he wanted private retirement accounts. Now Trump doesn't want to touch it at all, saying we don't need to do anything to it, which we do. And if you wish to reform the entitlement programs, then his campaign is calling you a globalist, that you're colluding with your globalist handlers because you want a fiscally sane Social Security and Medicare program.
Yeah.
Which
right.
Again, which Trump are you going to get? You know, we mentioned it yesterday, and we mentioned it when he said all the stuff on abortion. Any other Republican candidate who would have said that in the past, just to show you the change in the Republican Party, would have lost 5 to 10 points from Republican Christians. He didn't lose a point at all. And so the question is, as we asked, what do Republicans really want? What do the rank and file voters want? Are they changing that much? And so when you see DeSantis coming out, now we already knew that about Trump, but DeSantis coming out saying, no, we shouldn't raise the age. Well, what do you plan on doing then? Is the Republican Party now just going to ignore it? Now you had Christian Haley say you need to raise the retirement age for younger Americans, and as the Wall Street Journal points out, that still isn't going to be enough.
Yeah. Well, it's going to require a massive shift. And politically, there are only a few moves that you can make. And they start with the wealthy and big corporations. And that is, all right, companies with this many employees or more, they're going to have to pay more. And you're going to also see the move to do away with the cap on the FICA. That is somewhere around, I don't know, $150,000 a year. Well, that's going to change, likely, going forward. But politically, what do? The other side of it is you reduce benefits.
And they're not doing it.
No.
In the last 2 years, Social Security benefits have increased $219 billion in 2 years. That's $100 billion a year. It's going up.
Well, because politically you say, they say, look, we need a cost of living raise. I mean, there's always the cost of living raise built into it. But as we see record inflation, of course, that cost of living raise has to be greater and greater.
And they write what we said here, what we've said many times. Like Medicare and Medicaid, Social Security will have to be reformed eventually because its current course is unsustainable. But denialism by GOP candidates will make it that much harder to sell modest benefit adjustments to voters, giving Democrats more leverage to demand bigger tax increases. Is that what DeSantis and Trump want? And it's a great point. And it gets back to what we've said, though. No, the whole budget problem in Social Security will be taken care of if we get rid of foreign aid and wasteful spending. That the majority of Republicans and Democrats still believe, and it's completely false. And we got blasted a couple of emails this week for people taking what we said out of context. But nobody wants to hear it. We want to live in a delusional fiscal world. Guys, your opinion is wrong. It's not my opinion. None of it's my opinion. It's observation of the math. It's observation of the facts. It's not an opinion.
It's not going to change.
Right.
It's not going to change until all of a sudden the money just isn't there. And the next administration has to deal with it.
And all the
whoever the next president is, they're going to have to deal with it because that president will be sworn in January of 25, and they will be in office until January of 29. And that president who is sworn in then, whoever they may be, is going to walk through all of that because that's when the money is gone during that period.
And before I get the email, yeah, but you're forgetting about the IOUs that have never been paid back. No, by law, they got to put that all back in. That's why it's coming out of the budget.
Right.
That's why more's coming out of the budget because the IOUs are being paid off right now.
And the massive interest on the massive national debt is growing, and we've reached a point that in a 1-year period, we've already gotten to over $1 trillion in interest.
Yep. From the end of October last year to the end of October a couple of weeks ago, $1 trillion in interest. Half of our yearly deficit now is interest on the debt.
Yep.
And now we're close to 33.5%, a third of the budget is now being borrowed.
Right.
A third of it. And it keeps going up. We'll soon be at 40%.
Right.
We'll be borrowing more with the, what'd you tell me Treasury bills were? You said 6 months is 5.5%?
Yeah. Wow. Somewhere in there.
Wow.
I've left the page, but
Wow.
5.5%, roughly.
Yeah, we have fiscal problems that we have to address, and being angry at us because we bring you the math does not solve the problem. May make you feel better because you get it emotionally, you get to scream at us in an email. It doesn't change the math.
Nope. It does not.
866-90-RED-EYE.
This morning's USDA Farm Report is brought to you by House Products. Tested, trusted, guaranteed since 1920.
We finally got the complete U.S. agricultural export numbers for fiscal year 2023, which ended September 30th. So how did we do? Drum roll, please.
Agricultural exports are $178.7 billion.
USDA economist Bart Kenner says that's 9% below 2022. Sounds like a big drop, yes, but Kenner says you have to put it in context.
We had some pretty big spikes in the past couple of years in agricultural exports. A lot of that spurred by exports of grains and oilseeds to China in particular.
2022, a phenomenal export year with dollar amounts off the charts. So Kenner says this past year, instead of being viewed as a horrible year, is instead actually
kind of a return to more normal trends in terms of agricultural trade.
Trends affected by generally lower commodity prices and a strong U.S. dollar, making U.S. products less price competitive on world markets. Gary Crawford for the U.S. Department of Agriculture.
This report brought to you by Cenex Fuels and Lubes.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. All right, since we did bring a little good news at the top of the hour, more good news.
Yeah, all right.
It's more good news because of horrible news.
Okay.
The IRS has set new tax brackets and a standard deduction for 2024. The higher limits for the federal income tax bracket and standard deductions are intended to avoid what's known as bracket creep. Which happens when...
Wasn't that what they called Obama during basketball season?
I like that. I like that. We'll have the information on the new tax brackets coming up following the bottom of the hour.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
It's Friday Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Sorry, bracket creep.
That's a pretty good line, huh?
That was really a good line. Oh, when Obama did the college basketball brackets.
That's what they called Obama during basketball season.
All right. So the bracket creep, we're talking about the good news because of the bad news, because it's in essence what it is. Because of inflation.
Yeah. By the way, that will be the name of my next band. We will be basketball metal called the Bracket Creeps.
I like it.
Yeah.
Because everybody would say, what does that mean?
Yeah. Well, we'll tell you.
What's a bracket creep?
Yeah.
The standard deduction for individuals will be $14,600, up from $13,850.
Yeah.
Will rise to $29,200, up from $27,700 for married couples.
Did you know it went up last year? It went up even more last year.
Did it?
Percentage-wise.
Heads of households will now see their standard deduction jump to $21,900 in 2024, up from $20,800. The IRS is increasing the tax brackets by about 5.4% for both individual and married filers across the different income spectrums. The top tax rate remains at 37% in 2024, and that hits if you're making over $609,000, and that's your adjusted gross income.
Yeah,
that's after everything.
Right.
37%, 35% over $243,000, over 32% over $191,000, 24% over $100,000, 22% over $47,000, 12% over $11,000, 10%. Wow. Up to $11,600. Okay, that's after the deduction, though. Okay.
Yeah.
That would be after your standard deduction.
Right.
So, okay. So I was like, really? And
right.
then I realized, okay. So.
And there's
by the
also
way,
credits that apply on lower incomes.
Yeah, by that way, that's individuals. Tax brackets for joint filers, 37% over $731,000, 35% over $487,000. Now, remember, if you make, I think people know this, if you make, for example, because it's a 24% taxable income over $201,500. So if you make $210,000, that difference between $210,000 and $201,000, that's at the 24% tax rate. And then you go down through the tax brackets of 22, 12, and 10 on the lower income. So just so you know. But good news because of the bad news.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the good news is it won't seem like it's any different. That's the bad news.
You won't really feel much of a difference at all.
Meanwhile, Joe Manchin has announced he will not seek Senate reelection.
Shocked.
Not surprised.
We've been asking, actually, if he would bow out, because there was no doubt there was going to be a Republican challenge to that seat. And I think he likely saw the internals shaping up that he's just not going to have the support that he's had all these years going forward. And good. Now, the question is, how does it change the map? If you look at the, what would you call prediction forecast map in the Senate for 24, this was already factored in, that there was a strong chance that a Republican challenger could beat him. It wasn't necessarily a given, but it was factored into where how the Senate might shape up in 24.
Yeah, and Democrats were nuts yesterday on this.
Yeah.
They
right.
were just nuts.
Right.
MSNBC, whatever. I mean, the media was like, we just lost a Senate seat.
Yeah.
Definitely lost a Senate seat now.
You know what I wondered about? I kept wondering, too, about Mitt Romney. And by the way, do you see that the story also came out that Mitt Romney and Manchin want to form a bipartisan committee to help rein in spending. And I thought, well, who's going to be on the right side? But I kept thinking about Romney because I thought about this, and the reason I've been saying for years I think he's a one-term senator is because of the way that he got in. He went in and kissed the ring of Donald Trump looking for the endorsement. He got it, and the moment he got in, he turned on Donald Trump. And I think, and it's not necessarily just on the surface about those two people as personalities. It's about the rank and file voter in Utah, and I don't know what it looks like. He still had plenty of support in Utah, but I don't know if he had enough to win after what he did. And I had been saying almost since the beginning, probably in the first year, that he was probably going to be one term in the Senate after what he did. And that's the case. With Manchin, it's been shaping up for a while, but I think one of the things that really came to the surface was, how he would say one thing. Well, I'm going to, we need to, and I'm going to. And if you're liberal and in his state and you voted for him because he's a Democrat, you don't like him at all.
Well, we all knew he was getting played by the Democrats. We stated it. Then when he got played by the Democrats, he faked outrage.
Right. Yeah. And the liberal Democrats don't like him because he didn't go liberal enough. And, of course, Republicans, we kept saying, you and I had to remind people, look, he's not a Republican. He's not going to change parties. Even if he did change parties, he's not a conservative. He likes to walk a fence. And you can't do that today.
Well, I want them to do that because I want to know what the definition of a moderate is, cutting spending.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I know, I can tell you, the Democrats, for example, the Democrats want to balance the budget through taxes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Through increased taxes.
Right.
Because tell me what they want to cut.
Right.
Any Democrat, tell me what any rank and file Democratic voter out there, tell me what any Democrat politician in Congress, what do they want to cut?
Right.
Defense spending, maybe. But even most of them understand you can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe defense spending. What else do they want to cut?
Right.
Moderates, and they don't. They want to raise taxes. I'm really, and Republicans know they have to cut, but they're afraid to cut. You saw that when we talked about what has to be done with Social Security and Medicare, how to reform it, because they know if they dare touch it, they'll get voted out of office because the public isn't, even with inflation, the public is not in a cutting mood. And the public will not be in a cutting mood as long as inflation is this bad. And if we go into a recession next year, they will definitely not be in a cutting mood whatsoever. So the Republicans know we have to cut, but the party is split on how to cut.
Yeah. Yeah.
All the way up to Trump, because nobody will say where they'll cut, even though they know they need to cut, and they talk about the fact that they have to cut.
Right.
And even when they say they're paying for something, they're not paying for something.
Well, and
as we saw that with the deal that they wanted to make on what was it earlier this week, where they wanted to take away from the IRS. Oh, for Israel.
Yeah.
Right. For funding for Israel, they said, well, it must be paid for, so we want to take it out of the Democrats' bill that the
Inflation Reduction Act.
The Inflation Reduction Act that is going to hire 80,000 IRS agents. If we're going to fund whatever the billion, was it $12 billion or something for
$14 billion.
$14 billion for Israel, that comes out of that bill, therefore it's paid for. And it was one of the was it Massey or forgot who it was?
I think it was Chip Roy.
No, it wasn't Chip Roy.
It wasn't?
No, it was Massey. So came out and said he didn't vote for it. And they said, why didn't you vote for it? He said, because they're not telling you the truth. It's not paid for. Because the bill, the Democrats, that bill, what was it called again? What was that bill?
The Inflation Reduction Act.
The Inflation Reduction Act. I keep thinking infrastructure. I know it began with an I. The Inflation Reduction Act isn't paid for. They're borrowing the money. So all you're doing is taking borrowed money and switching it. You're saying it's paid for, but it's not paid for.
Right.
And that's the problem that the Republicans have.
Right.
The Republicans know they have to cut. They want to tell you that they're trying to, we're making sure that any additional spending is paid for, but it's not. They can't tell you the truth. And why not? Because the majority of the public doesn't want any cuts, even though the majority of the public tells you we need to cut.
Yeah, I mean, you can't. There's the problem. And gone are the days where you can be the everyman to everyone. You know, the whole idea of a moderate and meeting in the middle. I mean, there's going to be compromise, but there are going to be people on both sides of you angry at anything that you do right now, and that doesn't even include cutting spending. I just don't know where that turnaround is.
Now, this one from Speaker Johnson. He tells New York City that if they want funding for migrants, Republicans will consider it, but they have to get rid of their sanctuary city status. How do you guarantee that?
You can't. Once the money is spent, they can go back to it.
They can go back to it.
Yeah. Yeah. And
if you bail them out, they may say we're no longer a sanctuary city, but what does that mean? Will they stop taking in migrants?
Right. Well, any given person in any given position of power there locally can decide whether they're going to cooperate with ICE or not, whether they're going to spend resources or whether their department is going to do what it's supposed to do in cooperating with ICE or not.
And if you're if you're a sanctuary state, does it matter if you're a sanctuary city?
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
This is
where's the binding, mechanism in that agreement?
I don't know how you make a binding mechanism.
There isn't. There's no way to enforce it.
Because if you say we're going to give you this money now, well, a year later, then you make it a sanctuary city. What, the federal government can sue New York to get the money back?
It's not going to happen.
This is full of landmines for Johnson.
Yeah.
Unless I'm missing something, this is full of landmines. I don't like it.
Well,
because
he knows, he has to know you can't enforce something like that.
Unless he also knows they won't give up the sanctuary city status. So he can say, we offer them money, but they have to give this up.
Mm-hmm.
And they know they won't give it up because as liberals they can't.
Maybe. But it still doesn't go very far. It's not, I don't think it's great political leverage.
Neither do I.
You just point out to it, to the American people, we're not going to fund them to repair something that happened as a result of their sanctuary city policy.
Right.
We're not going to pay for that.
Right. The correct thing is you said you wanted this, you got it, you pay for it.
You have to figure out how to pay for it.
If you don't.
The American people are not paying for it.
And this is where you talk about the fact, again, this is all, whatever Congress gives them will be borrowed money.
Yep.
Is this going to be paid for? And this is where it gets into, well, how conservative really is somebody even like Johnson? That would bring up that question.
Yeah.
We'll see where that goes.
Yeah.
866-90 Red Eye.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Seriously, I think for the fourth debate for Republicans coming up in December, that they should just take all the money and have an open bar.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
And the candidates can be there. Yeah. Everybody can mingle, and you have a megaphone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or you stand up on the bar.
Right. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And Ramaswamy has to do 5 shots.
That's kind of the idea I had for them picking a new speaker. With a conch and an open bar. I've got the conch. I've got the conch. Sit down. You're Liz Cheney. You're not even a member of Congress anymore.
Oh man. Wait a minute. Hold it. Huh? John Kerry didn't want Liz Cheney in the in their group to have moderates figure out how to cut the budget.
Yeah. No, it was that was Romney and Manchin. Yeah, not John Kerry. Yeah.
What'd I say?
You said John Kerry.
Who was it?
Romney and Manchin.
Romney. Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
There's no difference.
There really isn't much of a difference.
I did say Kerry, didn't I?
One of them has much better robotic plastic surgery.
I'll never forget that time, and it was a repeat last year.
Mm-hmm.
And I was watching. It was Last Man Standing with Tim Allen, and he's in the pickup truck.
Yeah,
and I never saw it coming. And they were talking about how disappointed the young daughter was because she's really conservative and joins the military, and she was not a Romney fan at all. And all of a sudden, he says, "Yeah, you're still upset about the Romney loss." She goes, "Yeah." And he goes, "Romney's a robot." Oh my God, I laughed. I died laughing because you had said that
I've been
years
saying
ago.
it for years.
I couldn't believe they said that.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.